episode is one that I've been very excited about. We're joined today by a forensic licensed clinical social worker, a career path that blends mental health, social work, and the legal system in a way a lot of people don't even realize exists. Our guest works closely with individuals involved in the justice system and plays a critical role in advocacy, evaluation, and support, all while navigating some of the most complex situations people can face. I am so excited to dive into what this career actually looks like day to day, how she got here, and what advice she has for anyone who feels called to this meaningful, purpose driven work. Thank you so much, Jessica, for joining me on the podcast today.
You're welcome.
Could you briefly explain what a forensic licensed clinical social worker does for the listeners who may not be familiar with the role?
Sure. So I worked in the state hospital. Ohio has 5 of them. They're mostly forensic, which means that most of our patients are coming from the jail because they have some sort of a criminal charge and they're not competent to stand trial, so they can't help their attorney and understand what is actually they're being charged with, or how to actually plea in a way. Like, they don't know whether they should plead guilty or not, because at the time of the crime they may have been insane, not on medication. They might have a developmental disability. So we help them in the actual hospital try to gain competency. So helping them understand the court process, or trying to get them to take medication so that when they go back to court, they're actually in their right mind.
Wow, that's really amazing. It's very important. Wow. So for this position, what degrees and licensing did you complete? And what was your major focus during school?
My undergrads are in criminology and psychology. So I went for those, thinking that I would be able to do something with it. But you really can't do anything with psychology degree unless you get your PhD.
Right.
So when I started going for my master's, I decided to go for my social work license. So I ended up getting my MSW, LSW, which is a dependent license. And then after 2 years, I got my independent license. You could start the job with a dependent license, which is an LSW here in Ohio, or you can go further and go with your LISW, which obviously pays more, and you're not dependent. You don't have to work under anybody that has an independent license at that point.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, I have heard that you can't really do much with the psychology degree unless you get your PhD, but why do you think that is? Is there just not really many positions you can get into because they require more education?
I think it's because it's kind of more centered just around psychology. So you could do like therapy and stuff like that
Right.
with your undergrad, but you can't do things independently, sorry, in order to be able to do, like, open your own practice, or work in a lot of other fields. So social work is such a broad spectrum. So
Mhm.
there's a lot more that you can do with a social work license, because there's so many other career fields that you learn about. You're not, and during your schooling, you're not just working on specifically psychology things. So we're more about independent living, things that people need to be able to do in the community, resources, and all of that.
Okay. Yeah. That makes sense. So, how did you first come across this kind of position, a forensic social work, like as a career option?
So I was going for my master's degree during COVID, do my internships, and my first internship was doing dual diagnosis therapy, which is working with people with a substance use as well as mental health disorder.
Mhm.
And therapy is not for me. I'm too blunt and abrasive to work in therapy, because I just want to tell people what's on my mind.
Right.
So when I had to go for my second internship, I was actually supposed to do it at the jail because I had that criminology background as well.
Mhm.
And because of COVID, everything shut down. So they weren't taking interns at the time. So I had to pretty much search for my own internship. And I went right after everything started reopening, and the jail process just takes so long to get into. So they weren't able to get me in before I had to start my internship. So I started calling around and I passed the state hospital one day and I was like, oh, that place looks cool. I don't know what that is. So I
Mhm.
called them and I was like, do you have interns? And they're like, sure, come on in. So I found my own internship, went there. And when I did my internship there, I loved it. So I ended up from there going on to being a forensic monitor in the community, which is kind of like a parole officer for people that are not guilty by reason of insanity or
Right.
incompetent to stand trial. So all of my patients I already knew because they came out of the state hospital. So I kind of just went that career path and stayed
Mhm.
within that, but they didn't pay enough for independently licensed. So that's why I didn't stay with the hospital until I got
Okay.
my independent license and went back there.
Okay, very cool. So probably you wouldn't have found this job position if you wouldn't have just, gone right in to try to
Yeah,
do the internship there.
absolutely.
Yeah, I really like to stress that it's really important to just kind of jump right into something sometimes. Just
Mhm.
try it out, see if you like it because it might be your future career.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
totally. So, what type of professionals do you work with closely in your role?
So we work as a team. So we have a psychiatrist, a nurse, which is typically a forensic nurse, or a mental health nurse, but not always. So sometimes they'll come in and they're just RNs, LPNs, but typically we work with the RNs. And then they'll go and get their psychiatry certificate. And then we also work with psychologists. We have an LAA office, which is our legal aid, like our legal department, and they work specifically with the courts and get all of the court documentation we need. But we will go to court hearings with our patients. So we do work with the attorneys, the prosecutors, the judges, not as closely as just the psychiatrist and the actual RNs. And then
Right.
we also work closely with the forensic monitor. So that's who will monitor our patients in the community when they're able to leave the hospital. So we help make plans for them in the community with a forensic monitor once they meet a certain level.
Okay, very cool. Yeah. So is this career path one, I guess probably not one you envisioned when you were in, middle school or high school. Did you have another career path that you had like as your dream career?
Yeah, I wanted to do adolescent psychology. I wanted to be a child psychologist because of that movie Sixth Sense.
Okay. I love
Ever
that
since I
movie.
saw that, right? And I was like, since that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. I want to do what he does.
Mhm.
Obviously, not talk to ghosts, but
Right.
that was like where I wanted to go with it because I had a lot of childhood trauma. So I wanted to work
Mhm.
with kids to kind of help them through the trauma.
Wow, I love that. That's sweet. Kind of the position that you have now is still really similar in that way. You
Mhm.
didn't branch off too much,
Yeah, it's very similar because most of our patients that come in there, they have trauma, like
right?
extensive trauma. Um, so some of them, they do have that mental illness that goes along with it.
Mhm.
But sometimes, they have such severe trauma that it has created a psychosis. We help them through that as well. So it is kind of still kind of working with that population because you're still trying to fight that childhood trauma that's led them to where they're at now.
Mhm. Definitely. And do you work with any adolescents now, or it's mainly just adults?
No, we work with just adults. They're
Mhm.
all charged with some sort of criminal offense.
Okay. What does a typical day or week look like for you in this role?
There is no typical day. Every day is different. I think that's why I like it so much because it's not like the
Mhm.
movie Groundhog Day where you have
Right.
everything happening the same day. Um,
Mhm.
we have patients that come there that are on the court docket for life. We have patients that come there that are only there for like 20 days for restoration. So we're kind of cramming all of that court information into them, trying to get them on medication and get them back to the jail. So we have a very, especially I work on two different units. One is a female restoration unit. The other one is more so for those long term and it's males.
Mhm.
So the restoration unit is the one that it's a high turnover rate. Like last week we had two discharges and then two admits. So then we just had another discharge on Friday, so then we have another person coming in tomorrow. So it's very fast paced.
Yeah.
Typically, when they're coming in, some of them are very acutely psychotic. So you're hearing all these crazy stories of what they think is going on in their reality compared to our reality. So every day is completely different. There's a lot of assaultive behavior that can happen on the units
Mhm.
because, what they're thinking is not really what's going on. So there's a lot of paranoia and stuff. So there's not really one day that is the same ever. So
Yeah.
I can't even tell you. Like in the morning, we get in there and we try to get as much done in our notes and everything that we can because we don't know what the day holds once everybody gets up and has breakfast.
Oh, yeah, definitely. So, what skills or personality traits do you think are most important for succeeding in this field?
It is definitely not for everybody. So acknowledging the fact that it is an unsafe work environment
Right.
potentially, because you don't know what can happen. Everybody's very unpredictable when they're coming in. Even actually when they're on medication, they're still unpredictable because they can
Mhm.
have some internal stimulation and you just don't know what they're thinking at the time. And then having a open mindset where you're not judging people based on what they've done, because many of these people have been so sick at the time that they've committed a crime. We have people that have killed their own children, have killed their parents. Um, there's some, sexual predators in there, and just understanding that they didn't understand what they're doing is wrong and not judging them. It's really hard for some people that have some trauma, specifically, there's a sexual assault and now they're working with somebody with a sexual assault, not having those biases.
Right.
So be able to separate, yourself from what they've done, from their crime, from your biases, and being able to do that, it takes a special person to just not judge people. So being
Oh,
very
yeah,
open-minded.
definitely. And I would assume as well, like patience is a big one.
Yes, because you're
Yes.
working with people that could be very obnoxious because they have these chronic delusions and
Mhm.
they're crying or they're angry or it's kind of like working with a bunch of little kids sometimes and just having
Yeah,
that patience to be able to tolerate it and being able to walk away when you're frustrated because
right.
again they're sick.
So, kind of stepping out of the job that you have, your career, what are some of your interests or hobbies that you have outside of work on this? I know you probably don't have too much downtime, but in the little downtime that you may have, is there anything you like to do?
um yeah, you're right, I don't have a lot of downtime. I have three children. So one is an adult that lives out there near you. And then I have a 13-year-old and 7-year-old. So our lives are very busy.
Wow.
And then I also work on the crisis hotline. So trying
Oh,
to find that time for self care, which is very essential when you're a social worker because you're
definitely.
constantly taking care of others. So like today, the kids and I are going to go play some arcade games. I like playing games.
Oh,
We
fun.
go to amusement parks and do things like that. And then when I'm not with the kids, I go out with my friends and go see live bands. I like riding on the back of a motorcycle because I feel like it's like being a free bird.
Oh, yeah,
You're kind of just
definitely.
like floating through the air. So just doing stuff like that where I could just have some mindfulness. I like painting. So like
Yeah.
I've done like the paint with the twist and stuff because I feel like that's a little bit of mindfulness. So just finding things that, you know, are not taking care of somebody at the moment.
Yeah, of course. I think that's really, really great. And especially that you acknowledge that you need that. I think it's something that's hard for a lot of people to do sometimes. Acknowledge that they do need a break from, taking care of other people, especially with a job like yours. So I guess that really kind of answered my next question as well on how you kind of maintain that balance or prevent burnout, unless you have something else to add with that.
Yeah, I think with this, so I was in like I said, I've done the forensic monitoring job. That one, there's high burnout because you're so overloaded with work. Working at the state, it's a little bit slower paced, so it's
Okay.
a little bit easier because our patients are not leaving until the court says they're leaving. So just when I was doing the other job, just trying to find that time for yourself and trying to leave work at work. I was
Mhm.
on call 24/7 though, because in Cuyahoga County, in the city I live, I was the only monitor and we had over 110 people in the community.
Wow.
So if something were to happen, we have to contact the courts within 24 hours or immediately, depending on what it is, if somebody's AWOL. So it's that was really difficult to find that time, but it's so essential to find that time because I know I was having like dreams about work. And when I was starting to have dreams about work, I was like, you know what? It's time to take a vacation. So
Yeah.
just trying to find time to clear your mind and just making sure you do that for yourself. As soon as you start feeling that you're getting burnt out, you have to take the time.
Yes, completely agree. What is your favorite part about working as a forensic clinical social worker?
So I love, which is this, not all people do, I love acute mentally ill. I think it like their stories are funny sometimes. Like we have some pleasantly psychotic patients.
Mm.
Some are not, some are very angry, but at the same time, I love to see how the brain works. I think it's so interesting how somebody can come in there so psychotic and have all these fixed delusions. Um, some of them with those fixed, they don't leave, but some of them you can, it's not reality. And then just having these people that have these hallucinations, delusions, and seeing what medication can do for them and seeing how that brain works and how those neurons are firing. With the change in medication, they became somebody that is completely different of who they walked in with. So I love seeing that. I love seeing them so completely sick when they come in and then
Mhm.
just seeing the change in who they are.
Yeah, that is crazy to be able to experience that as well. Be able to see that change in a single person with just a single pill or a few maybe
Hmm.
and completely change their personality, their minds.
Yes.
Do you ever feel like some of the stories or some of the things that these patients are saying might be real, or do you always consider them as just in their mind?
Nope. So we always say, especially people that work with acute mentally ill, so a lot of people that don't, they will say this is just in their head. They don't know what they're talking about, but there's always truth to a delusion. Whether it be something very minimal, there's
Mm.
always something that is real in there. So whether, it's their truth or
Right.
something maybe they saw on the internet or they saw on TV and it kind of just stuck in their head as
Mhm.
being their truth and not somebody else's, there's still truth to the delusion. So just trying to pick out, what's real and what's not and kind of helping them process that, especially with those fixed delusions and letting them see like, this is maybe when your reality was a little bit off and this is real, but this is where your kind of reality lost place. So trying to
Right.
explain that to them and helping them find that insight, which they won't always gain, some people just won't, but there is definitely always some truth to delusion.
That totally makes sense. And I actually heard in a study found that when people have that trauma, that PTSD, years later from watching a scary or traumatic movie or even video online. And I think that's just so interesting because it probably just is impacting these patients' minds a little bit extra. Mm.
So it is different for those people because, like you said, I mean, with PTSD, you already have, stuff that's really happened, and now, things are triggering that. So they
Exactly.
are going to still have those flashbacks. And I try to tell, like, especially younger people that come into the field and that haven't really worked with people. I had a patient that thought he was, there were aliens in trees and that he would see aliens.
Mm.
And I would always tell them, I'm like, who are you to say that they didn't? And ironically, like, obviously, it's to the extreme that we start to get concerned. But not too long after that, there was a news article, and the government came out and said they found an alien. So I looked at her and I said, see, who are you to say that this man has never seen them? Yes, I know he is mentally ill, he has schizophrenia. However, there's always some truth to things. So,
Yeah.
the government's coming out and saying they have aliens. So maybe he did see something that was not real, like
Yeah.
maybe you didn't see it, but who are you to tell him he's wrong? Instead of like arguing with somebody over their delusions, we try
Mhm.
to comfort them because at this time they're psychotic and
Right.
this is their reality. It's like they're stuck in a scary movie and this is
Mhm.
their reality. So you're not going to be able to change that reality until you can get them stable.
Yeah, of course. What is one piece of advice that you would give to someone that's interested in this career path or entering maybe a similar field?
I am very strong on making sure that when they are doing their internships, they do something in the career field they want.
Mhm.
Don't settle for whatever the school is going to tell you that you can get. Call around, because my second internship, they wanted me to just do therapy again. And I said, I don't like therapy. I don't want to do it. This is
Mhm.
not something I want to go into. So you're setting me up to do something that I'm never going to do. So to experience something, I say definitely advocate for being able to do your internships in fields that interest you, because then you're going to really know, because you don't want to get into something, go get a job there, and you're going to hate it. So trying to do something with that during that school is so essential. So you do internships when you're going for your master's degree, and just making sure that you do something in those fields that you actually want to do. Try two different things. One thing you might absolutely hate, but the next thing might be your dream.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm assuming that's probably the same advice you would give to someone if they were still unsure about their career path.
Yeah, I you can get internships, not even being in that career. You can look on LinkedIn, you can look on Indeed, yeah, and just type in internship, and you can find an internship in other fields. So people love people that want to work for free. If
Yeah.
you want to come here and work for free, they're going to take you. Some people even pay for internships. You can look on a state website for state jobs, and they have paid internships. So trying to find something and testing it out first and make sure you like it, because
Yeah.
like I said, this position is not for everybody. You have to go in there with that open mindset, and you have to go in there knowing that, you know, this is potentially dangerous, and just being able to feel comfortable doing that, because you can't go in there showing you're scared. You go in showing you're scared. Now, people are going to feed off of that. So just
Right.
getting into something you really enjoy, do the internship, test it
Mhm.
out.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you would like to add? That kind of wraps up my questions.
No, I appreciate you taking time to meet with me.
Yeah,
I
thank you.
absolutely love my job. So anybody that has a little bit of interest in it, I say
Mhm.
test it out, because it's not, I don't feel like I'm working. I can go there and sit there all day and I'm like, oh, where'd the time go? And that's the best kind of work to have.
Yes, it absolutely is. And honestly, that's kind of why I'm doing this podcast because I want people to find a job or career that suits them that same way.
Yeah,
Something that it's not just about the money. It's something that is almost like
no.
their passion.
I took a pay cut going here. So it's not
Yeah,
about the money. It is not, and the money will find you. So just
exactly.
knowing that, there's that saying that says, if you enjoy your job, you'll never work a day in your life. So just being able to
100%.
do that.
Hmm. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate this.
No problem. Thank you. Good luck with everything.
Thanks, you too. And thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening today. If you are feeling stuck right now, it's not a forever thing. You're also not alone. Everyone has gone through stagnant moments and times in their life, and they got through it just as you will now. Tune in every Thursday to listen or watch on YouTube and Spotify. And please make sure to follow the podcast as well on Spotify or Apple. That way, you will be notified with each new episode, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you listen on there. I'm also on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, and Audible for audio only. Make sure to check out the Instagram and the TikTok at findyourpower_podcast, and feel free to DM me there as well. Thank you guys again so much for tuning in. I appreciate you all for being here. If you enjoyed, please rate the podcast 5 stars and leave any comments or reviews. It really helps the podcast grow. Also, if you have a family member or friend that you think could benefit from this episode or the whole podcast in general, we don't gatekeep here. Please send this to them and maybe they will thank you later for it. And lastly, if you would like to be featured for an interview just like this one, you can send me an email at the email linked in the podcast description section or shoot me a DM on the Instagram. I will talk to you guys again soon, and don't forget, we will find your power.